My cheating girlfriend ruined my life because she was insecure, so I abandoned her in another country. I began dating my girlfriend a little over 8 months ago, and it has been rocky to say the least. From the start, she was very insecure about our relationship. She would constantly tell me that I was out of her league, and ask why I was dating her. To which I would reply that I like her, and so I'm dating her, and there's not a deep meaning behind it. I would call her beautiful, praise her quirks, and take her on dates regularly to help make her feel secure. I thought she was the perfect girl, and wanted to eventually marry her. But she never stopped talking about how she didn't deserve me. What really bothered me was that she would constantly say that I was going to cheat on her because she was ugly and inexperienced. I would say that that's ridiculous, and I would never cheat on her. She would ask to see my phone, but when I would say yes, she would back out and begin apologizing for being annoying. I spent so many nights comforting her and assuring her that I was loyal to her. For the last few weeks, she had not brought that topic up, so I thought that she had finally matured from her insecurity. She even began hanging out with her friends, something that she never did when we started dating. I was really happy for her, and encouraged her to go out as much as she wanted. But little did I know, she was actually planning on my heart. One day, she came home drunk at 5 a.m. in the morning, and fell asleep as soon as she hit the bed. But since she was tired, she forgot to lock her phone. I didn't even notice it at first, but it soon started blowing up with notifications. I picked it up so I could put it on silent, but noticed that all the texts she just received were from a guy. Remember that it was 5 a.m. in the morning, so I was understandably weirded out by a guy texting her at this hour. I decided to open the chat and see what it was that he wanted from her. But the things I saw broke my heart. He was sending her the pictures from their most recent encounter, and they were having intimacy in all of them. I couldn't believe my eyes, and investigated further. It turns out, they had been meeting in secret for months, and she was 100% cheating on me. Remember when I said she had started hanging out with her friends more and more? Yeah, that was her going out to meet this guy. I didn't understand why she would do this. Right up until yesterday, we were talking about how much we loved each other. And here she was, coming back after sleeping with another man. I had to hold back a scream and ended up puking in the bathroom. I also looked at other chats, and found even more ridiculous stuff. She was telling her friends that she was only cheating on me because I was probably cheating on her as well. She had convinced herself that she was just getting payback, when in reality she was crushing my spirit. All those nights of comforting her insecurity had been for nothing. I threw the phone near the bed and left the house because I couldn't stand looking at her. I couldn't even go to a friend's house because all our friends were mutual, and most of them already knew about her cheating. I sat in a coffee shop, crying about what I had just found out. When I went home, my girlfriend was already awake and preparing breakfast. She greeted me happily, but this time I noticed the hint of guilt in her expression. I finally realized why she would always make me a delicious breakfast after a night out. It was her way of apologizing for her horrible deeds. She had been doing it for so long that this relationship was over, and there was no chance of reconciliation at this point. But I also didn't just want to leave it peacefully and be the only one who had to go through suffering. So I acted like nothing was wrong and asked her to go on a vacation with me. The location I proposed was a non-speaking country. But to make sure that she would go on the trip, I dropped some hints that made it seem like I was going to propose. She responded very well, and was excited to go on the trip with me. She did ask that I keep the duration as low as possible, most likely so she could meet the other guy as soon as she could. I agreed because in the end, it wasn't going to matter. When we landed, I immediately took her to the hotel room and slept with her. It was actually disgusting for me, but I persevered through it. Once it was over, I told her to stay in the room while I went to eat some breakfast. What she didn't know, however, was that I had sneaked out all the luggage with bags full of trash. So she had no clothes or possessions that she could use. She also didn't know that I hadn't booked a return flight for her. I told the hotel staff that she would be paying for everything, and left for the airport. A few hours later, I landed back home with my phone blowing up with texts. But I ignored it, and finally took a sigh of relief. Naval officer didn't want to live with degenerate enlisted, so I got him fired. I was a Navy enlisted service member and was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan for a few years before I got transferred back stateside. I worked in the main hospital that cared for service members and their beneficiaries. It's a small hospital so everyone knows everyone. Shortly after I left, I caught wind of a new physician officer working in the radiology department. My friends would say he's horrible to work with, but that's nothing new. However, someone saw him print a letter and he left it on his desk and took a picture of it and sent it to me. He's requesting to move from enlisted housing to officer. For context, military housing is available for those who are married, have a family, or are qualified based on their rank and depending on the military base itself. Typically, officer housing is much nicer than the enlisted. In Yokosuka, housing is basically the same all around because it's overseas. But most of the housing are apartments and each apartment complex is called a tower, example, Fuji Tower. There are 9 towers and 2 are for officers since enlisted members outnumber officers by a lot. Now, one thing about the military, poop happens. When getting stationed, it is the active duty member's responsibility to either apply for housing on or off base before arriving, depending on what is allowed. If there is limited space and you don't apply for housing on time, then you get put where there is space. So our new officer got placed in an enlisted tower. Mind you, enlisted members have families of their own and other officers have been placed in enlisted housing before without an issue. Here are some quotes in his letter. I have many valid objections to living in a building of almost all enlisted and even many lower enlisted being an officer. There is a lot of crime, violent actions, substance use and alcoholism that happen in enlisted housing. There are also intimate assaults and other perverts. I have a good-looking family, a wife and 2 daughters aged 3 and 4. They are prime targets to be victims for these enlisted deviant activities. My family should be safe in housing that is with officers. Officers are much more respectable and these types of deviant activities are incredibly rare compared to the deviant activities of enlisted being commonplace. Other officer families will not want to visit us because our family lives in enlisted housing. My children need to make friends with other officer children. My wife needs to make friends with other officers' wives. I need to make friends with other officers. Forcing an officer to live in a large apartment building with almost all enlisted is unethical. You get the idea, he's a piece of work. This guy basically looks down on all enlisted service members, assuming every single one are substance users, perverts/PDOS, criminals, etc. The kicker? He was an enlisted army member before going to officer school. In civilian terms, think of a manager that discriminates and calls all of his subordinates criminals, violent, alcoholics, pervs, substance users, etc. based on your job position. Forgetting that some have a family and maybe aren't any of those things. And he not only has the authority to ruin your work life, he can ruin your personal life by denying days off, making you stay late, writing you up if he doesn't like you and not letting you promote, etc. Safe to say, everyone was pissed and I had nothing to lose. I was separating soon and figured I'd have some fun before I got out. I created a burner Facebook account and posted the letter and the officer's picture on a popular military enlisted group page. Within 2 days, it spread like wildfire. But I wasn't done yet. The military has something called challenge coins. Think of trading cards but custom coins that come in many shapes and sizes. I designed one with his face and a big middle finger in the back. On top of that I designed stickers too. Show how proud us deviants are. Other coin designs came from other people as well, but so far I think mine was more popular. I sold over 70 coins to the person who originally sent me the picture at a huge discounted price so she can sell them for a profit for herself. So the officer's face is everywhere because most people keep their coins displayed on their desks. No matter where the officer went to work, he would see his face on someone's desk. And since it didn't have his name on the coin, I can't officially say it's him. I sold more stateside and even some got sent to Europe. I made about $3,000 overall, which was nice. The story even got featured on the online naval newspaper and on 2 popular YouTube channels. And if you're military, you know the only time big military care is when it's too big to sweep under the rug. This story got the officer sent up to captain's mast, which is like a Navy court. He tried to say his wife was the one that wrote the letter, but no one is buying it because her writing style is way worse. She even tried to take the fall, but no one believed her. They both ended up deleting all social media. Due to this, he got served 3 UCMJ articles, which basically are his offenses. But there's more. When you're in the military, you have a deadline on how long you can be a certain rank. If you don't pick up, then you're kicked out. And because he's new and got served UCMJ articles, he won't be up for promotion and therefore was involuntarily separated. Also, the officer program he went through pays for his PhD. When the military pays for your PhD, you have to serve 10 years to pay them back. If you don't complete 10 years, you have to pay the military back with money instead of time. So he lost his job and now has to pay back the military for his PhD, and since it takes a while for the paperwork to have him and his family sent back stateside, you can bet he socially suffered because no one worked with him. 7 horrible seniors in my class together, and how I completely ruined their web of lies. I've been teaching for many years, but it's important to understand that in my first year of teaching, I got put on blast by an elite group of EPs and their EC. Not a week went by without someone either demanding my job, trying to undermine me, or just calling me a piece of poop. I nearly quit halfway through the first semester. The verbal and emotional abuse was so bad. This was at a school in a tough area, so I was accused of racism constantly for asking kids to stop talking, was ripped into for giving failing grades for missing work, and even enforcing the rules in the student/parent handbook got me in hot water. My principal reprimanded me for being a negative influence on the school and was told that I needed to let more rules slide because he was tired of hearing from parents. I would have parents just show up unannounced to sit in on my lessons and then tell me I was a SHD educator, a bad human being, etc. I have plenty of horror stories from that school alone, but the point I want to make is that this experience defined the kind of teacher I became going forward to my next school. I needed to be that person who was untouchable, because I needed to focus on the one job that mattered, teaching kids. My next school was in a fairly affluent area. It wasn't uncommon for me to find out that my students' parents made millions, which brought its own unique set of problems. However, my new principal was super supportive of me as long as I followed the school's handbook to the letter, because, by doing so, I was in line with the school's philosophy and protected by law. This school had long ago learned that caving to parent demands spilled blood in the water and brought the rest of the sharks in droves. My first year at this new school was successful for many reasons, but primarily because the school culture was easily adapted to. By planning ahead, I was able to head off 99% of all negative parents at the pass. The few times a parent tried to rip into me at conferences, I ripped back so hard that I developed a reputation amongst the kids and parents as someone you couldn't F with. Everything I did was in line with the rules, and any attempt to take me down got stonewalled by my principal, who would have to say, "Mr. My name is following school policy, so I'm afraid the ultimate decision is his." No joke, I had some parents in tears because their kid could no longer get an A in my class. I wasn't the teacher who wanted to destroy kids, I just wanted them to be accountable, and sometimes that meant letting them fail. Needless to say, this job became a lot of fun, because instead of waiting to be ambushed by parents, I could work on making my class fun for my students while still teaching them something. I made ironclad rules for the classroom that brooked little argument and would adapt the following year to make it harder for students or parents to ruin my day. I have many stories like this, but this is one of my favorites. The year this happened, I taught a HS class with grades 9 to 12. My class wasn't necessary to graduate, but did count as a core requirement. One of my beginning of the year rules was I never want to hear when will we ever need this? Because you didn't have to sign up for this class. My class was built so that it had something to offer everybody. If you tried your best, you were guaranteed a C. If you worked really hard, you could get a B or an A. I would bust my SS to help a student with any reasonable request. The best example of this was when a student was working hard on an assignment and said I think I understand it now, but can't turn it in on time, to which I answered then turn it in tomorrow for full credit. This is how hard work pays off. Other than a few hard deadlines in my class, I would do whatever it took to see you learn the material. F around in my class? I have already found ways to run circles around the pathetic excuses you throw at your parents for your piss-poor performance. It sounds callous, but I was the teacher who would stay for 90 minutes after school to help you catch up, to help fix your project for another class, or even to listen to you cry about your parents' divorce. If I caught you goofing in class instead of doing your work, I would warn you a couple times, email your parents, and then wait and see if they even gave a poop. If they didn't, I would let you keep digging that hole until you were hip deep in water and begging for a ladder. And then I would toss you a rope instead. You could still climb it if you tried hard enough, but a lot of kids would just cry until that hole caved in and buried them. I also utilized my school's online grading/assignment system for nearly all of my assignments, which meant I could document when a student looked at the assignment, how long it took them, etc. All of this allowed me to see what my students were doing, when they did it, and also if they were plagiarizing. This was one of the tools that helped me make important decisions about leniency, and also allowed me to say things at conferences such as of course the test was hard, your child didn't attempt the 9 homework assignments until 11 p.m. the night before the test. Being able to prove that a student wasn't trying made it impossible for blame to be laid unfairly at my feet. It also meant the worst kids avoided my class. However, this year, something magical happened. Every other year, I would get a wave of kids who just wanted to screw around and blame everyone else for doing poorly. At the end of the year, students would poop talk me, my class sizes would drop the following year, then I would receive high praise from those 7 horrible seniors in my class together, and how I completely ruined their web of lies. I've been teaching for many years, but it's important to understand that in my first year of teaching, 7 horrible seniors in my class together, and how I completely ruined their web of lies. I had already heard tales of some of these troublemaking parents. Other teachers were just dying to hear stories about our interactions, because these parents were very much entitled. They would name drop lawyers when they didn't get their way, try to badger teachers into giving their kids extra credit, and would largely deny any wrongdoing on their kids' part. These were the parents who would get called in because their student was busted cheating, then accuse the teacher of making the class too hard, therefore validating their student's need to cheat. So about these knuckleheads. It was a group of roughly 7 senior boys who all shifted their schedules to be in the same period with each other. The other teachers could not believe that I had all of them at the same time, but I just shrugged it off. Every week, the staff lounge was dying to know how I dealt with their shenanigans, but for the most part, I had shut down most of their poop from day one. I actually got along very well with them, despite their constant goofing, because they had mastered the ability to appear busy and didn't distract my other kids. Then came the first group project. My class size was just right for 7 groups of 4 to form. The idiot collective formed 2 groups of 4 by pulling in a kid who had been absent on the first day of the project. These 2 groups crashed and burned on this project so hard for several reasons, but the biggest were that A, they effed around during class time, and B, put off a 2-week assignment until the weekend before and then dumped all the work on everybody else, which resulted in everybody doing minimal effort. I handed out the poop grades and was immediately pulled into parent conferences with several of them. Every meeting was the same. My kid did all the work, so he doesn't deserve a bad grade, or my kid didn't understand the assignment, to which I handed over my hyper-specific rubric, which is a checklist for how I grade things. I never wanted to be accused of grading based on not liking a kid. These largely went like this: EP, my kid did all the work and I don't think it's fair, it should hurt his grade. Me, here is the work your student turned in. Here is my rubric, which I printed and emailed to your student the day the project started. As you can see, I have itemized the grading for ease of use. I would be happy to go over the grade your student earned. EP, reads through all the evidence, looks at kid, where are the missing parts? Student, my group members were responsible for that. Me, I can't grade what I never received, so I can't reasonably just raise your kid's grade. Sorry. Now, while this did suck for them, the good news is that I make assignments worth more throughout the semester, with the idea that kids who screw up early on can make it up later by working hard. I seed extra credit throughout the semester, and all of these parents are disgruntled, but happy to hear that their entitled embryo can still get an A in my class. Now, the end result of these meetings was that it clearly wasn't my fault, so it must be the other kid's fault. So these parents all decide that their perfect angel is no longer allowed to work with their previous group mates. Like a cancer, this failure of friends spreads through the rest of the class. Like the genius that I am, I make my students write a group contract for every project that details who does what and when it is due. Why is this important? Because the contract provides me with the documentation necessary to allow me to dismiss a bad group member and give them a 0 without their parents SHing all over my day. So here is where the problem begins manifesting. These seniors begin bouncing from group to group like cancerous ping pong balls, wreaking havoc. I let students choose their groups, so these seniors are desperately integrating with anybody that will have them. Because of my class size, every group has at least one coddled child to deal with, and these children just end up rotating until all of my students have worked with one of these seniors at some point. Now I'm getting constant complaints from parents of other kids about these boys. Their kid wanted a good grade, which means they ended up doing all the work while the senior slacked. This is usually after the fact, at which time I bring up I would love to yank that leech out of your grade pool, but you have to use the contract. Students don't want to say anything because they fear retribution from the seniors, but I can't do anything because I will be accused of harassment. The contract can provide me with the leverage I need to prove that these kids were doing no work, because these seniors have been playing with their parents for years. I make my class utilize Google Docs, because the changes are time-stamped. No joke, I've had students produce all the work the morning of a parent meeting to try and lie their way out and make me look like a piece of poop, but that timestamp is a godsend. Luckily, my class is balanced. A SHT group mate can make things hard, but not undoable, and parents are appeased that I have an out for their kid, but disappointed that their kid doesn't use it. Every time I announce a group project is on the way, some of these seniors sucker up to the other kids to the point that it is expected that a spot will be made for them. I'm talking about buying kids lunch, bringing them gifts, etc. Seriously, the day before a group project starts, all of the seniors now sit at separate tables from each other so that they could pull the "I'm already here, let's be in a group" card. The strain on class morale is difficult, but I am biding my time. The other students are grabbing at extra credit opportunities constantly so that their grade can absorb the blow, and parent complaints are completely mitigated because I'm still offering every chance for success. My principal has a copy of my syllabus on his computer so that he can quote student policies that the parent signed off on too. Not uncommon for him to hear I don't read that poop, so it doesn't apply, but he reminds them that the clause above the signature line says my signature denotes that I have read this document in its entirety and agree to abide by all the rules or something similar, and that this should be a lesson to the parent and the student that when you sign something, you should read the fine print. Neighbor harassed my dog for months, and then tried suing me. About 6 or 7 months ago, my neighbor got a drone. I don't mind people having hobbies, but for some reason he insisted on flying like the biggest jerk possible. He would hover in front of other houses and windows, try to race cars going down the road, and worst of all, he had a habit of flying his drone in my fenced backyard, buzzing over my dog, diving low just over my dog's head before circling around to do it again. My dog isn't small, he's about 70 pounds and a Malamute, but the drone terrified him, and I was worried what would happen if it hit him. I asked my neighbor several times to please not fly in my yard and explained that it was scaring my dog. He basically told me to get lost and laughed in my face. When it still continued, I called the police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do other than ask him to please not fly over my house/property. Finally, in late December it happened. My dog got tired of his poop and managed to catch the drone right as it was diving towards him. He shredded the drone. The thing was just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. Neighbor was pissed. He stormed over to my house swearing and threatening me, which I ignored. A week later, I got a summons to small claims court. He wanted $900 for the cost of his drone and an additional $300 for supposedly denying him access to his property. F that. He could have unalived my dog. I don't have kids or a girlfriend, I just have my dog who is my best friend for the past 7 years. That dog has moved with me 3 times, was there when I graduated college, saw me buy my first house and my first new car. I love my dog. Turns out, him suing me was the best thing to ever happen. When we got to small claims court, the judge basically laughed away his claims that I had intentionally trained my dog to attack his drone. But little did he know I was prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard showing it was impossible for him to accidentally fly that low to my dog, videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and I had saved all my medical bills from taking my dog to the vet. $700 for an x-ray? Check. Another $250 to sedate him during? Why not? Don't want him being uncomfortable. Full dental exam with tooth cleaning/repair? $400. Then there was the cost of anti-anxiety meds and a secondary checkup, wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra just for good measure. In the end, the asshole ended up owing me almost $2,000, and now is being investigated by the FAA for not having a registered drone and violating several FAA regulations concerning drone flight, too near an airport, too close to other people, out of sight of operator and way above the maximum altitude. Enjoy never being allowed to fly drones again, pp. My boss tried to sleep with my fiancée, so I expose all his cheating to his wife. This was several years ago. So my boss, an extreme type A personality, found out I was seeing a young lady at another one of our offices. It was a long-distance relationship. He was the type he liked to control everything and mess with people for fun. He was also married to another employee, but he was very unfaithful. And he had a hobby, photography. He liked to take pics of himself and his conquest, in the act. Then he would show the pics around the production floor and brag about it. Well, on his next trip to this other office he tried to get my girlfriend to sleep with him, but she spurned him. He made up some lies and got her fired. It took a long time, but I was patient. I knew he kept the photos in his office. He could not risk keeping them at home where his wife might stumble upon them. One Saturday I was working out and the cleaning lady came through. They unlocked his office. I came in acting like I was taking dimensions on some drawings. The lady just asked me to close the door when I was finished. She left and went down toward accounting. That's when I went through his desk. Sure enough, in the back of one drawer I found a stack of photos 4 tall. I took them all. Then I waited until he went on another trip. When he did, I went out for lunch. I had a dozen pics of him, in the act with 4 different women, all showing his face. The women all had dark or red hair. His wife is a blonde. I drove to the town he lived in, to the closest post office to his house, and mailed the pics to his wife with no return address. She divorced him, and her lawyer took him to the cleaners. My girlfriend is now my wife, and my old boss's life is ruined, having lost both his wife, and eventually his job as well. I got moved to salary to majorly gimp my pay, so I left my boss high and dry. I used to work as a chef, for an owner who liked to micromanage things and was a bit narcissistic. I'd been working there for about 3 years, getting good reviews, customers loved me, and updated the menu. Made everything from scratch. People used to think the place was open box/heat, serving food. Quality had gone up and morale was great in my kitchen. Annual sales went from $850,000 to $1.4 million, about maximum capacity for the space. The increase in sales and income went to the owner's head. He was always spending money on frivolous things and squandering cash. Sound system, stage for the event space, ect. One example, I needed a new alto sham. A used one would have sufficed. Nope, he bought the top of the line one that could be used as a smoker to $12,000 versus what I wanted could be gotten used for $1,500. Granted, I enjoyed that piece of equipment, which after I left they no longer use the smoker function. Years later I still occasionally get emails invoices from a vendor and see they bring in pre-cooked smoked meats now. I was hourly, but then the owner realized during the busy season I and my sous chef put in 70 to 80 hours weeks. Doing this he realized I made more take-home pay from his business than he did. At peak times he'd maybe work 40 to 50 hours a week. So to save money he puts me and my sous on salary, effectively cutting my pay by about $10,000 a year. My sous netted a loss of $2K/year, if we were to work at our current level of effort. During all of this the owner is saying he is not expecting us to work over 40 hours a week, ever. He even has this written into our contracts. So with the extra time off at home with family it is okay. I still like the job and my staff. During the slower time this was great. Also during this time I had won a local award for my cooking, and the narcissistic owner was not too pleased. He was no longer recognized as the creative force in the kitchen that bears his name, so his meddling and micromanaging increased. It had gone from it's your kitchen, my name, do what you want to it's my name and my kitchen do it this way. Morale and quality began to suffer. Just prior to the holiday season my sous wants to go back to his home country for 2.5 months, November, December and January peak crazy time for us. I have good help and am good with it, owner approved the time off. Owner thinks I am gonna save him some money that holiday season by working my usual 70 to 80 hours a week. Nope, cue the malicious compliance. I start writing the holiday schedule, sous is on vacation, I have my 40 during key prep times and peak business times. The rest of my staff gets serious overtime. Basically the sous and I carried a lot of the weight in the kitchen and could outperform most of our small staff. So with sous on vacay and I only pulling 40 full-time staff is now working 60-ish hours a week, and part-timers are getting 40. Things are running pretty smoothly until the owner realizes I'm not there like I always am during the holiday rush. He's in the kitchen more trying to micromanage my staff, giving them poor advice, contradicting my directions and timing for events, screwing up the small parties my staff could handle while I am off. After a few weeks of this he realizes he's going to be paying the staff out more in overtime than he saved on moving me and my sous to salary. He starts demanding I work more hours to stop hemorrhaging out to the kitchen staff. I show him my contract where I am not expected to work over 40 hours a week. Now he says it's just a guideline. I hold him to the 40 a week, it's Christmas and now I can for once spend time with my family. Now with my sous returning, I'm burned out from the constant micromanaging and gaslighting by the owner. I hand the reins to my sous and change careers after 25 years in the industry and never look back.
Hey Claire, you're going to be able to make dinner tonight, aren't you?
Sorry Mom, I'm too busy with work today. I told you I wouldn't be able to make anything, I don't have time.
Don't make excuses. I know that your job is just a lie, so that you would get away with the fact that you're lazy and irresponsible. You're too lazy to do any real work.
That's not true. I work every single day. I've told you so many times, why don't you get that?
Why should I believe you? Everything that comes out from your mouth is suspect. You're a serial liar. I don't want to hear it.
Whatever, you know? You totally don't have to listen to me if you don't want to, but seriously, I'm telling the truth, okay? I have this super crazy important deadline coming up. So obviously, there's absolutely no way I would have any time to make dinner. I mean, come on Mom, it's common sense, right? Can Dad do it? Or seriously, what about you? Where are you? Did you disappear into another dimension or something? It's so frustrating trying to get a straight answer from you.
Oh my gosh. What kind of wife are you, seriously? Your poor dad is sick and you expect him to do your stupid chores for you? How selfish can you possibly be? It's unbelievable.
He understands that I'm crazy busy with work. I already told you a million times about my insane work. Have you ever listened to me? Even texting with you right now is wasting my time. I need to focus on my work, okay? It's like you don't even care.
How rude. I'm your mother. Show some respect.
Mom, if I ignore your texts, we both know you'll be all mad and worried. Mostly mad, though. But seriously, I'm telling you, there's absolutely no way I can make dinner tonight. Why don't you get James to do it? He's perfectly capable, you know?
Oh my goodness. First, you want your poor sick father to do your work. And now you want to force your miserable husband to do your stupid chores? Can't you see he's busy with his own business? His work is incredibly demanding and stressful, you know? It's not a walk in the park.
I get it, okay? James has his own business, but he also has plenty of free time and goes out to have fun all the time. It's not like he's chained to his desk 24/7. He could totally make dinner for everyone, like no big deal. It wouldn't hurt him to lend a hand once in a while.
Are you serious right now? You have no idea what it's like to be in his position. You've never worked hard for a job in your life. All you do is go out and have fun all day, without a care in the world. So obviously, the least you could do is make dinner. It's the bare minimum, really. If you can't help out around the house, you're just causing more trouble for the family by being here. Can't you see that? We have enough on our plates already.
What are you even saying? I did everything I was supposed to do. I got my own job and took care of myself ever. I did it because I thought I could somehow help you and my husband with our financial problems, you know? I thought you understood that. But lately, it feels like you've forgotten all about it. I don't know what's changed your mind, but you totally don't seem to remember any of the sacrifices I've made. I don't get why you're acting like this. Don't you think you're being, totally unfair? You've said some seriously awful things to me lately, and I don't get why. I deserve better treatment than this.
You seriously don't know? It doesn't even matter what excuses you make. You haven't done anything to help this family. You're just a lazy, useless waste of space. You take and take without giving anything back. The least you could do is help out around the house, you lazy piece of crap. It's the least you could do after all we've done for you. Oh, I see it. The reason why you are so busy taking care of this house is that you are spending time with another man out there, right? I knew it all along. From the first time.
Wow, Mom, you didn't have to take it that far. I ain't going with any man. You're being unreasonable. Don't you ever think that your daughter-in-law also has to struggle with the world outside to make sure that you have a fulfilling life? And now, you are saying that I'm unfaithful to your son? What kind of mother are you?
Who knows? And you know what? I moved into this house so that I could help your husband to watch over your every action. Wait for it, one day I will be able to catch you red-handed.
What on earth are you thinking? It's like I'm a stupid animal to you. Listen to me, I'm not dating any single man, and you don't have the right to say that about me. So stop your irrational thoughts about me. Anyway, I'm gonna have an important meeting coming up, so just stop these meaningless fights, okay?
How dare you to say that to me like that? Okay, we'll see about that. Soon you'll be kicked out of this house.
The next day.
Claire, did you really inform my mom that I would cook dinner? What on earth are you talking about? Can't you see that I'm overwhelmed with my reports? Do you even have any idea how to handle your responsibilities as my wife?
James, please allow me to explain. She pressured me into preparing dinner, but I was swamped with my own paperwork, you know. so I simply asked her if you could lend a hand with the household chores. Besides, you are my husband, so it wouldn't hurt for you to learn to assist your wife with these mundane tasks, right, dear?
Dear? Ugh, don't you ever call me dear. It gives me goosebumps. The issue here is, how dare you speak about your husband in such a manner? Or do you believe that with the properties we possess, you'll soon become a wealthy lady and take over this entire house? Then you would order everyone in this house to do the housework for you? In your dreams. Remember, this house belongs to us only. My father bought it initially so that you could have the honor of living here, okay? You need to adjust your attitude. It's rude, and you should be aware of that.
All right, what are we actually discussing right now? Are you attempting to change the subject? I'm trying to convey that you could help me with the household chores, like any typical husband would. Are sweeping the floor or washing the dishes too difficult for you to handle? And you're afraid that I would take all your stuff away? How absurd! Do you think I'm that terrible? I don't desire even the smallest thing in your house. None of those possessions mean anything to me. Initially, you told me you were over the moon to have me here with you. And now you're saying that I should consider it an honor to do these things? You're so hypocritical.
Ah, now my wife is suggesting that I'm lazy and bothersome. Is that right? Well, I'm starting to see it now. In front of my face, you act all innocent and weak, just to gradually win my affection. But behind my back, you engage in every possible mischief to tarnish my reputation, don't you? Your scheme is so cunning that I couldn't figure it out all those times. So tell me, who's the two-faced person now?
We've been arguing a lot lately, and I've been doing my utmost to mend our relationship. I'm working my ass off to earn your acknowledgement, so that I can be a valued member of your family. Now, I'm even earning money to support your family, cooking meals, doing household chores, and countless other tasks you've forced upon me. And this is how you repay me?
You keep talking about your work repeatedly. Do you think your job justifies every deceitful thing you've done? Lately, I've noticed that you've been associating with many men. Wow, that's why you haven't got time to cook dinner, right? So working at the company is merely a disguise, isn't it? Well, that explains everything. Inviting my mom here to keep an eye on you was such a brilliant idea. Tell me, how many men do you want to go on dates with each day? You better tell me the truth, or else you'll face the consequences.
Is this all you know what to talk about? You're insulting your wife.
What does that matter? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Fine, you have no evidence of me betraying you, yet you rush to conclusions. Don't you realize how absurd you sound? You're hurting me so much that I can't even see you as my ex-boyfriend anymore. Listen closely, I'm not like those foolish and malicious girls you encounter every day. I have my own self-esteem, and I know my limits, and will never do anything that could throw dust on your name. You can always be sure about all the words I have said. I don't know why you have such thoughts about me, but if you ever think ill of me like that, then we would have to rethink our relationship.
Rethink our relationship? Oh, please, Claire. You're acting like a victim here, but let's not forget the facts. You've been avoiding your responsibilities, making excuses every time. And now you're trying to turn it around and make me look like the bad guy? You make me feel irritated.
Excuses? I'm not making excuses, James. I'm just trying to explain my side of the story. But as usual, you can't just stop insulting me and putting bad things all on my head. It's exhausting dealing with your constant suspicions and accusations.
Don't try to twist this around on me, Claire. You're the one who's been neglecting your duties as a wife. And now you want me to believe that I'm the one at fault? I've had enough of your manipulations and shifting blame. It's time we address the real issues here.
Oh, so now I'm the manipulator, am I? How convenient for you to paint me as the villain. I'm too tired to take this painful burden. I need a rest right now.
How dare you rest when I'm worrying for this family? I've been tired of your attitude from long ago. Don't say like you're the only one who has to suffer. Mark my words, Claire. Being my wife right now doesn't guarantee that you will still be my wife in the future. I can divorce you anytime. So don't ever think of ordering me and my mom around ever again, okay? And one more thing, try to be a nice and obedient wife. If you still don't know your manners, I'll throw you out of this house. Got that?
2 weeks later.
Mom. Please answer the phone right now. I'm losing my temper. I want to ask you something. I can't believe you could be that unreasonable.
Ugh, do you have to be so annoyingly impatient? What's the big deal anyway? Just spit it out.
Okay, Mom, I'll come straight to the point. Yesterday, James told me that you caught me cheating with another man. He even told me that I was a terrible slut. I mean, like, what the hell was that? I was trying to explain at that time, but he didn't listen and just couldn't stop insulting me. So I'm calling to ask you, what on earth did you tell James? I want an explanation. You better explain clearly, because I don't deserve such treatment from your family.
Oh yeah, surprise, right? Being caught cheating, that hurts, right? It's so good to see you being humiliated for your own sin. You'll have to pay for all the terrible things you have done to me. To this house.
But please.